The invention of photography was not one discovery that led to what we understand as photography today. There are many winners and losers in the evolution of photography. It was so fascinating at every different point in history. The way we just familiarize ourselves with the world around us just fundamentally changed with photography. I am Sudhindra SG and you are welcome to the second episode of FTII History of Cinema. Cinema means storytelling, and let us start our second episode with a story. Long ago in 4th century BC, there lived a Chinese poor family. They had many children and one of them was very naughty and he was always imprisoned in one of the old sheds and he was asked to always stay inside a dark room or a dark chamber of their house. Although he used to be always locked, at the end of the day in the evening he could exactly narrate what exactly happened in the outside world. This was a miracle for Chinese people and they then started to respect him as a special person with divine capabilities, and this boy later on went on to become one of the most powerful philosophers in China. This boy is none other than Mozi and he gave rise to the school of thought Moism. However, after a very long time, that is after around 1500 years ago in the 19th century, when a research was carried out on Moism, it came to know that this Mozi was just an ordinary boy like us, but he had discovered a phenomenon through which he was able to clearly see the outside world inside the dark chamber of his house. He had created a small hole in his chamber and through that hole he was able to see what was happening outside on the opposite wall. In 19th century, people gave this miracle a scientific name called as Pinhole Camera. The idea of pinhole camera was that when light from different parts of the scene are made to converge through a small hole, then the image of that scene can be projected on the opposite wall and this image will always be inverted. Later, this hole was replaced with polished convex glasses and that led to the birth of lenses. And so right from 4th century BC, man was aware of a technology to project the image of any scene or object on a screen. Later on, Aristotle, who was almost contemporary to Mozi, also experienced this phenomenon, and then this pinhole was given the real boost and people were clearly able to recreate the image of any object due to the most revolutionary finding of an Islamic scholar called as Ibn-al-Haytam. 965 CE, during the golden period of Islamic age at Baghdad, a medieval mathematician, Ibn-al-Haytam, also called as Al-Hazin, explained how a curved glass piece can be used to recreate a bright image on the screen. We can consider him as the father of optics and the man who introduced the two lenses to this world. So today, Iraq or Baghdad was the place where the world's first camera lens was manufactured or designed. So creating an image of a scene and projecting it on a surface was mastered by man right from 4th century BC. It was given the name as camera obscura, which means in Latin a dark chamber. So artists, painters and sculptors used this technique to create paintings and drawings accurately. They projected the image using a room and a reflecting glass and sometimes even a lens and were able to trace images. And the first such traced accurate portrait was created by a French painter, Francisco Melzi, and the portrait she created was of Leonardo da Vinci. Historians argued that there were many geniuses who were in par with Leonardo da Vinci in talent, but the world remembers him only because of this portrait created by Melzi. That is the power of photography. One good photograph can change human perception about history. So now the camera obscura was ready, but it was used by artists basically to trace images. This thing changed when a German chemist called Johannes Heinrich Schulz stumbled upon an accidental phenomenon. Schulz was a professor studying medicine, and once he took a bottle which had previously contained nitric acid in it, and he carelessly, without washing a nitric acid filled bottle, he filled it with silver and later put a label and accidentally he kept it near the window. After some time, when he came and saw, all the silver that had exposed to light had turned black. He immediately was fascinated by this phenomenon and carried out research on it, and finally was able to break the jinx that only artists can create images. He was the first to introduce the world with a new phenomenon, and this phenomenon was photosensitive property of chemicals. Till then, chemists believed that every element had physical and chemical properties. That is, it underwent changes only when it was subjected to either physical action or only when it was mixed with some other chemical. But Schultz found out that some chemicals also had a third kind of property called as photosensitive property. He was able to figure out that silver halides, that is silver nitrate, silver bromide and silver iodide, were a very stable compound in dark. But when they were subjected to light radiation, these stable compounds broke up, and by a process of washing this chemical in a solution called metol, they were able to remove all the broken silver halides like chlorine, iodine and bromine, and this made only silver get deposited in areas which was exposed to light radiation. Silver in general is shining material, but chemically when it precipitates as black, and so this phenomenon led to the birth of photosensitive screens. So now I will briefly explain exactly how this photography process works, again with the help of the image of Aishwarya Rai. So Aishwarya Rai image is first projected on a screen using a pinhole camera or a lens, and now if this screen is an ordinary screen, then the image can be seen here only till Aishwarya Rai is sitting in front of it. So if you want to record it, then the screen has to be replaced with a surface coated with silver chloride. Now in a dark room, silver is mixed with hydrochloric acid and silver chloride is prepared. Later this silver chloride is converted into an emulsion using a material called gelatin. When this silver chloride is mixed with gelatin, it becomes an emulsion, just like the paint emulsion we use to paint walls. Now this emulsion is poured on a surface, and this process is again done in total darkness. Then this coated surface in total darkness is brought and placed in place of the screen in the camera. Now the lens or the hole is initially closed, and once everything is ready, we remove the cap and expose the light from Aishwarya Rai onto this surface. Today, when you take a photograph, you are asked to click a button. We term this as clicking a photo. So when you click this button or when you click a snap, whether it is in the camera or in your mobile phone, the action that happens is your lens is closed with a door or a shutter, and this shutter opens and allows the light to come and fall on the screen. One important condition is that when this exposure is happening, the object should not move, and if it moves, it gets shaken or blurred. So once this exposure is done, then again this exposed layer or surface should again be packed in total darkness. In total dark, we have to then bring it into a dark room, and then we have to first wash this surface in a solution called developer. A typical developer solution consists of metol, phenidone, dimizone, hydroquinone, sodium carbonate, and in this solution the layer of screen is washed. Now if you take the image, the area where we see Aishwarya Rai's saree is given 1000 watts light, and so here 1000 silver per millimeter area is exposed, and when we wash it in developer, chlorine from this 1000 silver per millimeter area are removed and 1000 silver is deposited here. However, if you take the area of hair, no light is coming from there, and silver chloride here is stable and it remains as it is. And in skin and other areas, depending upon the amount of light coming, amount of silver chloride losing chlorine and becoming silver will vary. Now we have a image where saree is totally dark and hair of Aishwarya Rai is totally white, but still this image is unstable. We can see this only in dark room, and if we bring it outside to light, then the silver chloride present in the unexposed area also gets exposed and the entire screen turns black. So after the image is developed, in developer, to remove the unexposed area silver chloride, we wash this in another solution called fixer. It is the solution of sodium thiosulfate, and sodium thiosulfate has the property to dissolve all the unexposed silver chloride. So once it is dissolved, we have only silver deposits on the screen which appear to eye as black. The amount of this blackness or silver deposit varies depending upon the intensity of the light on the screen. Now if you see this, you can see that the black area of our original image are here white and white area of our original image are dark. So we are now seeing an opposite toned image, and in photography we call this as negative. Now comes the next process of making positive from this negative. Now for this, we now use this negative as the source image. If we want the final image as the same size as the screen or the film, then we use a process called contact printing. If we want to increase the size, we use a device called enlarger. Enlarger is similar to our slide projector. We put the negative in the slide part, and then we have a light source at the top and condenser at the center and a lens below it. Now this image of the slide is projected on another screen in dark room. Later we then place a silver bromide paper here, and when we again expose this to light for some time, and later again when we take this into two solution, developer first, and here what happens is the saree of Aishwarya was white and in negative it had become black, and so this area silver bromide is not exposed and they remain white. But the hair area was black, and now in our process it had remained white, and for now it is exposed and silver bromide here is exposed, and so when I wash it in developer, all the exposed silver bromide here loses bromine and silver is deposited as black. So we get hair back as black and saree back as white. So negative of negative is positive, and finally we have our print ready. Even here, after developer, we wash the image in another solution fixer to remove the unexposed area silver bromide. Advantage with this process is that once you have one negative, then you can have any number of positives. If you take one picture of Aishwarya Rai, from that one negative, you can take hundreds of copies of positive prints. So now you are familiar with the complete process of photography. This process that we understand now was not invented or discovered at one go. It took years of hard work of many inventors and chemists to arrive to this process. So today we learned about the photography full process. To summarize, we learned how a prisoned boy in a dark chamber became a philosopher with the technique of pinhole camera. We then understood how the world's first lens was built in Baghdad and the contribution of father of optics Al-Hazin Ibn-al-Haytam. Then we understood how Leonardo da Vinci was made famous by a painter called Francesco Melzi by making the world's first human portrait using camera obscura. Later we understood how an accidental careless move by Johannes Heinrich Schulze introduced us to the photosensitive property of chemicals. Later we explored the complete process of photography. It consists of four main steps. The first step is exposing. Expose the image on a photosensitive screen coated with silver chloride. During this process, the light exposed silver chloride forms a latent image on the surface or the screen. The second process is developing. In this process, we bring the exposed screen in total dark to dark room and then wash it in a chemical called developer, where exposed silver chloride turns black, and then in fixer to remove all the unexposed area silver chloride. After this process, we get a negative. The third process is printing or enlarging, and in this process the negative becomes the source image and it is exposed on another surface using a contact printer or enlarger. We also learnt about the structure of enlarger. Then the fourth process is to develop this print, and our positive is ready. Now this process has developed with some historical movement, and let us recall these historical movements during this photographic development in our next session. Thank you.